So my name is Brendan Farrell and I'm a local gardener here in Arda. And I've been fascinated and absolutely enthralled by our local area here, our landscape. We're very fortunate where we live. We have there's lovely agricultural land all around us, manicured fields up around the village and closer. And then as we walk down and come towards the mountain here to Breelay, the land becomes more rugged, more rocks, more wildflowers, more nature. And this is the place where for thousands of years people have climbed up here. This is our hilltop, known in mythological stories as Breelay. But for us, we always just call it Ardagh Mountain. But with a certain reverence, we call it Ardagh Mountain. And it is here, on the last Sunday of July, we have come to pick the frocons, the heat fruit of Breelay, the bilberry. It is something actually that I remember so much from my own childhood. When I was a little boy, over 50 years ago, my father brought me on a walk right up to the top of this mountain. I suppose my father really, it was something that he did because it was something that he was brought when he was a child. And we went there, we picked some of the bilberries. My father looked around, he looked across the landscape that he loved. He would look at the fields and the other farmers, what had they done? Had they hay made? Talking to some of the other neighbours that were there. It was a small gathering of people. There was no mention of Breelay, there was no mention of the Lunacy. But it instilled in me the love of this tradition. And it's something that I have remembered ever since. And so it is with great pleasure and with great joy that I am here again. And we do this every year now, bringing the younger children and the wider community and new people who have come to live amongst us. They too now are part of Lunacy as we pick the frocons on the last Sunday of July. What we call Ardagh Mountain, and this is a place that we cherish so much. But Ardagh Mountain, of course, for others, they laugh at this idea of Ardagh Mountain because I suppose it is a hilltop. But perhaps because we had the memory of this important place, perhaps that is why it was called Ardagh Mountain. It had another name going back into the distant time. That was called Slieve Gollery. And there was a race of people who lived here, and they were known as the Golleries. And I can remember well my mother and parents talking about the Golleries, and they were known as lovely people of short stature, very, very short people. But the name that has, I suppose, gained more attention and has really brought it into the mythological tales of Ireland is the name Breelay. And Breelay, that name comes down from the mythological stories. I remember reading the book Maura MacNeil, her book on Lunacy, where she talks about the High Kings of Ireland and the prerogatives of the High King. The prerogatives of the High King included the fish of the boyne, the venison of Naas, and the heat fruit of Breelay. And the heat fruit would be, of course, the bilberry that grows on the heat on the top of the hill, in amongst the rocks, where the leaves have decomposed to create an acidic soil that suits both the heather, the heat, and the frocons, the bilberry. So this habitat that we have up here on the Breelay, as we move higher up, is very diverse. Huge range of different plants, the heathers, the frocons, and a lot of ferns and mosses. This moss here, this is sphagnum moss, which of course is the formation, is what forms heathland in the first place, where the mosses grow in the wet and the shade, and then layer upon layer, year after year, grow and decay, and one layer builds upon another, and eventually, of course, underneath the layers, the peat forms. So it becomes an acidic soil which favours the frocons, and but it also absorbs huge amounts of water. So this is where the bogs were so valuable as well, because the bogs, when there was a lot of water, a lot of floods, the bogs absorbed the water, and of course this prevented flooding of towns and of agricultural land, and so it's important. And now again we are, Bordemona are starting to stop the milling of the peat, and they're going to start the wetland rehabilitation and the new formation of more mosses and new habitats once more, which is a great thing. There's the bilberry bush here now, and so it's a little low growing plant, grows in amongst under the trees where there's light getting through to it, and so the plant end here has just at this stage almost all the fruit have been picked. Birds love them as well, and that's how they're distributed. But here we have one of the little fruits left, and that fruit is extraordinary how it has such resonance and such that mythological richness that it has in the story of the Froch Sunday, which is celebrated in all those hilltops where the tradition remained. But this fruit actually, apart from its rich mythological history, has also a richness in medicinal purposes, because actually during the Second World War, particularly in the sleeve blooms in County Laois, where there was an abundance of this crop, there were armies of, well, groups of women in particular, used to go out and collect those, and they were brought to England, where they were sent to the soldiers fighting in World War II, because its fruit obviously had qualities that were worthwhile, rich antioxidants, and helped keep people sustained. Okay, so Arda, for those of us who are from Arda, we have known Arda as Ardagh Mountain. We've called this place Ardagh Mountain, the high place that I suppose Arda itself, Ardagh, the high field, gets its name from. But going back in time further, it was also known as Slieve Gollery, the place where a small statured people, the Golleries, lived. And also a name that resonates with us now again was Brí Leith. Where Brí Leith itself derived, where that name derived from, we can only guess. But here is one story that tells of how that name came about. This is an extract from a book written by Lady Gregory, completed by Lady Gregory on Irish mythology. And in this one, on a chapter of Mither and Attain, we read about the naming of Brí Leith. And Mither took a hill for himself, and his wife Fumach was with him there, and his daughter Brí and Leith, son of Cooley, was the most beautiful among the young men of the side of Ireland at that time. And he loved Brí, Mither's daughter. And Brí went with her young girls to meet him one time at the graves of the daughter beside Tara. And Leith came with his young men along with him till he was on the hill of the after repentance. And they could not come nearer to one another because of the slingers on Mither's hill. They were answering one another till their spears were as many as a swarm of bees on a day of beauty. And Cochlan, Leith's servant, got a sharp wound from them, and he died. Then the girl turned back to Mither's hill, and her heart broke in her and she died. And Leah said, although I am not let come to this girl, I will leave my name with her. And the hill was called Breelay from that time.